Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is the Apostate Prophet. I hope everyone is having a fantastic day. I am here today with two guests, both of whom are religious Jews. And we have a slight delay, which is because they were just showing me how to control the weather control machine, how to control the world and all of that. And it was very interesting. I didn't even want to go live, so that's why we have a slight delay. But yeah, now we're here. Life has to go on. My dear guests are Joseph the Jew and Josh the Jew. As you can see it on the screen. How are you guys?
All the better for hearing that fantastic nasheed. I tell you, if they played that nasheed in the local masjid, I'd be there every day.
That's good. That's good.
Very, very good. Baruch Hashem. Very good. Thank God.
Nice. If they play that at the mosque, maybe I would go back to the mosque. I don't know. Is it true that you guys control the world, by the way, and you can change the weather? Or
Absolutely.
oh,
okay. It's not us guys. I take the credit. I control the weather in London, I think.
Oh, you do? Okay, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's very nice.
I'm just saying a thank you once in a while would be very nice.
I mean, you could do some better weather in London.
I think
that's why
rain is good. Rain is good. We need more rain.
Okay, well, I guess yeah. So, have both of you guys watched my debate, or at least relevant parts, about Judaism and the Talmud and Torah and the claims that Daniel Haqiqatjou made?
So I've watched at least 2.5 to 3 hours of that 4-hour debate. I gotta say, I had to break at times and do it over multiple days. But yes, I think so.
Oh yeah, I don't know why I'm asking you. You already you were actually texting me as you were watching it. So there are a lot of claims that Daniel Haqiqatjou made in that debate with me. He did make a lot of claims about the history of Israel, which I vastly addressed right there on the spot. Made certain claims about Palestinian behavior, Muslim behavior, Jewish behavior, and so on. I tried to do which I actually planned on doing long before I went live in the debate with him. I was planning on completely deflecting from any accusation that he makes against Judaism and the Talmud and the Torah. Of course, he thought that I was going to actually engage in his stupid argumentations about that, and I was actually going to defend Judaism there and waste my time with his quotes that he cherry picks when he doesn't even get the sources right and doesn't even get the names of the sources right. I deliberately planned on deflecting from all of that and just turning all of this into exposing him and his lies about Israel and all of that. And I think it worked very well. But now I have you guys here to address some of the stuff that he said about Judaism and the Torah and the Talmud. Do you guys think that he gave an accurate representation of what Judaism is?
I don't think it was a fair representation, and I think after that performance, we should probably rename him as Daniel Haqiqatjou rather than he's gone crazy on the internet. He's literally gone full Adam Green. It's very interesting to watch the regression. I didn't think
I wasn't expecting such a big name to go there. Basically, I thought to myself, what is this guy? He's spent too much time on 4chan, I think.
It's funny that you mention both of those things, 4chan and Adam Green. Most people don't know who Adam Green is, and please don't even look him up. It's cancer. But Daniel Haqiqatjou is not very unfamiliar with that name. He actually follows that name and actually also sources that name. I'm pretty sure that he actually linked to that guy's website before. So he follows all of these, all of the neo-Nazi, white supremacist, extremely anti-Jewish people whenever they go against Judaism, of course he doesn't follow them, or he completely ignores it when they say anything about multiculturalism and all of that. But when it comes to bashing Judaism and building everything on complete lies, he completely agrees with them and basically parrots all their propaganda. You could even argue that he's worse than them in many ways. So let me bring this on the screen here, and how about let's start by going through all the things that he brought up in this beautiful debate, where he still thinks he did a good job exposing Judaism and addressing my hypocrisy and all that. It is very funny. First, quickly, Acoceres became a member. Thank you so much. My name is Sean, with his amazing profile picture, which I never want to put on the screen, but I am forced to. Says, "Mashallah, another life from beloved Prophet, peace be upon him." Thank you so much. Amortize Halt, finally a live stream while I'm awake. This is directly in shekels. This comes from Mossad. They're paying me.
You are paid by the Jews.
Yeah, I am directly being paid by the Jews. You can see it right here.
Literal shekels. Amazing.
Yeah. Bilbo McFrodoBag said, "AB, is this the Joseph from Israel advocacy movement that you were talking about on the last live stream that you thought was good looking and wanted to give a kiss on the cheek?" This is, you could have kept that a secret. I never said such a thing, but yes, I guess, yeah. Alexis says, "Is it true that Jews have a gold bag at your necks?" Yeah, probably. Definitely. And finally, Classico said, "Pikachu take attack correctly reading is super effective." Yes, exactly. All right. Oh, by the way, I'm completely messing this up. So Joseph, Israel Advocacy Movement, you are on YouTube. You're also on Twitter, now known as X. You're very active, and people can find you on YouTube directly, right? Anything you want to add to plug quickly?
Yeah. Israel_advocacy, Israel Advocacy Movement on all the social medias. Appreciate any of the follows. Regularly go toe to toe with some of the nastiest people in the UK.
Nice.
Who also feature on your channel regularly.
That's good. And Josh, where can people find you?
Yes, you can find my YouTube channel, which is dormant, Jews at the Corner. Otherwise, you can have a look at my Twitter, which is at Shire Pearl. So,
you're also a regular at Speaker's Corner, aren't you?
Yes.
Nice.
I've not been for the last few months, but yeah.
You have been missed. I've had lots of Christians and Muslims asking, "Where is Jewish Josh?"
All right, let's see. Now let's go into Daniel's opening here. Actually, I'm not even sure if I shared the sound. I haven't. Then I need to correct this here quickly. Let's see. Present. All right. Amateur job here. Okay.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. A note to the audience, all the references to Jewish texts I'll make in this opening statement, I've compiled them all in a document. If you go to muslimskeptic.com, you can see it there on the home page. That way you can double check all the references for yourself. So which religion is responsible for...
All right, so I'm actually going on muslimskeptic.com right now. And all I'm seeing is this here. And then I'm seeing tunnel memes where he's talking about how these tunnels are a Jewish conspiracy.
Amazing.
What in the world is happening here? This is the quality content that he puts on. Right?
Yeah.
But he went to Harvard, remember? He went to Harvard. He's an academic.
I just really want to know what Natui Carter think of this guy. I really want to know.
Oh, I should ask you about that later, actually, when we get to it. So I'm trying to look at the sources here. Am I not seeing it? Don't block those you disagree with. What? Pride and religion, some Hindu stuff, fake terror videos. I don't see anything here, so that's a shame.
I'm going to put it in the chat. I'll put it in the chat.
That's a shame.
It's in the chat.
Oh, you got it already? Okay.
The private chat.
Okay. I find this thumbnail so funny. He put himself like as this very angry, very determined guy on here.
You're some cheerful, like happy guy.
All right. Let's continue then.
The Israel-Palestine war? Is it Islam or Judaism? Judaism has many unique teachings that explain why Israel, as a Jewish ethno-religious state, acts the way it does. There are many Jewish teachings that we can discuss, but for the sake of time, let's just go over the three most racist, most genocidal, most disgusting teachings within the Jewish religion. First, Judaism teaches that Jews are a superior race and non-Jews are not even human.
Whoa. Why didn't you guys tell me about this? Joseph, why didn't you?
Once you've got to, you're at the level of space, lasers, and weather. Next level is banks, and then when you reach level 3, we'll tell you about our supremacy.
This is one of many times that I hear Daniel Haqiqatjou claim that there is this racial hierarchy in Judaism where Jews are racially superior and all the others are inferior to the Jews, which is very funny because that's basically the concept of national socialism. So and it's funny how he would compare that to Judaism. So, what in the world is he talking about? Very briefly, before we go to the sources.
Before we go into the sources, I think one of the things that differentiates Judaism from other religions is that we do have a concept of the afterlife, the world to come, and we don't believe it's exclusively for Jews. Whereas with Christianity, with Islam, you have to belong to that faith to merit the world to come. And that's because within Judaism, we believe B'Tselem Elokim, all people are created in the image of God. We believe we're all equal. It's the actual complete opposite of what Haqiqatjou is trying to represent. But Josh, feel free to add anything or expound.
So you might see, AP, I've put something in the chat there from my Twitter page. This is a meme that I've made showing what Judaism really says about non-Jews, and it's 11 quotes, some of which is from the Talmud, from other traditional Jewish sources, and you can see very clearly that actually Judaism is quite nice to the goyim, as it were, quite nice to the non-Jews. We've got all the lovely things about people who do good things in their life, right? As you can see here, right? Haqiqatjou quoted Mishnah Torah a lot in his thing, right there, front and center. Righteous Gentiles have a place in the world to come. If that's not, if that's racism, I must be very racist. It's
you are indeed very racist by that standard, yeah.
Yeah. As you can see.
Jerusalem is Talmud with justice and an abundance of kindness. He does not deal harshly. God does not withhold reward from Gentiles who perform his commandments. If someone wants to become righteous, even if he is a Gentile, he can because it is not a family trait, as it says. But how
all of these are clearly sourced, and unlike the other memes that are going around against the Talmud, you can look any one of these up on Safari or wherever else, and you can see these for yourself. These are true quotes, real quotes.
It is forbidden to deceive anyone, even an idolatrous Gentile.
Yep.
But excuse me, but people on social media always give me these sources that seem very authentic, where it says in God Shas something about Gentiles. I'm sure you both have come across those memes where they list a bunch of supposed sources from the Talmud, and some of those sources don't even exist. Like, no, you ask Jews, you ask rabbis, and they don't know what that source is. They say it doesn't exist. I have no idea what this is talking about. But if you gave people these sources, they would probably dismiss this as just deception, as a lie, because that's what Jews do. Jews lie. So when Daniel Haqiqatjou says, obviously, that Judaism is racist, and that it has such a hierarchy. And you then give me sources which say the opposite. Why would I trust you instead of trusting Daniel Haqiqatjou, considering that Daniel Haqiqatjou always already told me that you would lie to me?
Because when it comes to Daniel Haqiqatjou, he pronounces Shulchan Aruch Shulchan. He can't even pronounce the names of these sources he's reading. he can't even read the English of the sources he's reading when they do exist. Now, I think, truthfully, an honest answer is you can go to any religion, and if you go through their texts and you don't know the context of what you're reading, you will be able to find things that you find unpalatable, particularly with scripts that are supposed to be understood by people across the millennia, written by rabbis 2,000 years ago, written by priests 1,000 years ago, Muslims 50 years ago. You will find things that will not necessarily conform to modern sensitivities. The trick to any religion is actually looking at something in its entirety, understanding the framework in which you're supposed to read it. Daniel Haqiqatjou doesn't even know what the Talmud is. There's over 2 million words in the Talmud. Daniel's read 5 of them. And so he's not an authority, in short. But I'll let Josh add.
I mean, the real issue is, like Joseph said, taking things out of context, right? Because, like, forget about the crazy stuff, like Libre, Dovens, and Gauchas, which don't exist at all, right? Mm-hmm. When you've got texts which, yeah, they seem quite controversial, when you take, like, half a sentence or a sentence within a longer passage, and you don't know what it's talking about, you don't understand the framework of how the book talks, you don't understand you're reading a book of legal argument in which it's a dialogue, right? What we call in Aramaic a shaklavataria, which means a give and take, right? Mm-hmm. These people don't know how to learn a page of Talmud because they haven't learned, right? So if you ask someone who knows how to learn these sources, then you can learn, understand what it's really talking about. And but he doesn't know how to do that because he's never bothered to ask anyone. Mm-hmm. He just makes his assumptions and reads the memes.
Mm-hmm. This is a very good resource actually here to use as a counter. So it's very. Did you put this together or somebody else? You put this together. Very nice. Very nice. This is a good rebuttal to use when somebody comes with that whole idea of look what the Talmud says about, look what Judaism says about the Gentiles. But let's continue. Let's see what he is going to.
The basis of this is the Torah, Deuteronomy chapter 7, which says, "Ye shall destroy their altars and break down their images and cut down their groves and burn their graven images with fire. For thou art a holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth." The Talmud.
It is very funny that he would bring this up as evidence that there is this inherent superiority in Judaism, this racial superiority and inferiority.
I think one of the biggest lessons anyone, particularly the Christian viewers, can take from this is don't trust the King James. So he's got an accurate translation, but it's a mistranslation. Nowhere in the text, and Josh will, I'm sure, agree with me, does it say that above all people that are upon the face of the earth. It says mikol ha'amim, from all the people. Nothing to do about being above. A Christian translator translated that because of whatever rationale they were using, but in the Hebrew, no Jew would read it that way. It's mikol ha'amim, from all the people.
Which basically means it's a separation. It's not a hierarchy, it's a separation, right? So in Judaism, and Joseph might disagree with me, in Judaism, we don't believe that everyone is the same. We don't believe that everyone is equal in that way, right? We are different, right? We are distinct. But that doesn't mean one is better than the other, right? It means that we're distinct. So there's a distinction here. One is set aside for a certain purpose, and another is set aside for a different purpose. That's the general way that Judaism looks at these types of things. Not just between Jew and Gentile, but between man and woman, between a Cohen and a Levi, which are things within Judaism, within the Jewish people, between all sorts of different types of person. These are not superiorities; these are just distinctions, separations.
And I think the key thing there is to focus on what the chosen means. It means we were chosen to spread monotheism, to be an oligoyim, to do what many Muslims and some would say Christians do today, which is spread the monotheistic concept that there is one God and the values that are associated with that. And so it doesn't mean, it's not, as Josh was saying, it's not about a hierarchy. It's about what is our function. And to be honest, I think the Muslims and Christians do a much better job of spreading to use a Christian term, the word about the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob than the Jews do. They have bigger platforms than us. But at heart, that's what chosen
Strongly
means.
disagree.
That's
You
an
don't believe
interesting
it
thing.
says we're chosen to spread monotheism, Josh? Or about the Christians you disagree?
That bit, obviously.
Yeah. So I'm relying on Yaakov Emden to be as charitable as I can.
Okay, sure.
Okay, don't fight now. It's very funny, Daniel Haqiqatjou. If you did this with the Quran, if you quoted a Quran verse, he would nitpick and he would get to the actual wording of it and go into different translations of it. He took here one translation which fits his agenda and which says above all people. Like for example, when I read the Bible from the Christian sources in a Christian translation, I prefer the New American Standard Bible, which I would say is more loyal to the actual literal meaning. Here, it doesn't say above all people at all. For example, it says here, "For you are a holy people to the Lord your God. The Lord your God has chosen you to be a people for his personal possession out of all the peoples who are on the face of the earth." This doesn't sound at all like what Daniel Haqiqatjou is trying to say. Of course, of course, he would go for the translation that says what he wants it to say and uses that without wanting anyone to actually go and check the sources.
Exactly. But on the point that about the chosenness, another thing that I don't think we've mentioned is the idea that in Judaism, it's not as if God chose us just out of the blue. It's more of the idea that we chose God, and in response, God chose us. So it's not actually what people think it is. That you think that God plays favorites and stuff. No, the idea is that we chose Him, and we chose to follow His laws. That was the point of it, right? And therefore, He's chosen us for a specific purpose. It's not a superiority.
And just to add to that, if you're going with the Jewish tradition also says that the nations of the world were offered to take the mission that the Jewish people ultimately took, but they chose not to. So if you're taking the Jewish interpretation, the Jewish text, the Jewish tradition, you have to take all of it. You can't just take the bits that you want to twist to create a negative narrative.
I remember a long time ago reading from a rabbi about the Jewish view on Gentiles and what exactly happens to the Gentiles, to non-Jews in this world and in the world to come. And as far as I always remember, and I think I even brought this up during my conversation with him or during a review, was that according to one prominent rabbinic Jewish view, God chose the Jews as people who are meant to show to everyone else what God expects from you, how to live righteously, and so on and so forth, but that God has an ultimate plan for all the people in the world, and that eventually, in time, God will reveal His plan, and that to the other people, and that the general idea in Judaism is not Jews are selected and saved and everyone else is just doomed. So that is the interpretation that I read from a rabbi, for example, several years ago. Would you say that is pretty much an accurate representation.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, see, you see. But Daniel would say, no, they believe in racial superiority, and they believe everyone else can be raped and killed and and whatever it is. It's just insane, man. The funny thing is also that he, as first evidence for his claim here, he cites Deuteronomy, which not only Jews but also Christians consider holy, and which they also read and study. And I wonder what he thinks Christians then would get out of reading this. It's very, very interesting to me how he actually thinks. But whatever.
Talmud further teaches that non-Jews are not to be regarded as humans or treated as such. Only Jews are human. In the Babylonian Talmud, Bava Metzia 114b, we read, quote, Jewish people are called man, but Gentiles are not called man.
This is the only source he mentioned that I actually responded to briefly during the debate. Although I had the urge to respond to it, but I had to stop myself from going further because I specifically didn't want to discuss the Talmud. But I hear this source brought up from idiotic, ignorant people, and especially neo-Nazis on the internet quite a bit. And if you study it for just 10 minutes, you understand that this is not at all what is being said. in what is being referenced to. It is a discussion on semantics and what exactly applies here. But do you guys want to deal with this?
Yeah, I mean, this was already dealt with about 800 years ago by Tosfos, one of the main commentaries on the Talmud. And I've put in the chat actually a thing from the Daf Yomi website, which has very nice English point-by-point summaries of every Tosfos in the Talmud. And if you go to the second Tosfos, that's number 1. If you scroll down to number 2, it has a whole long explanation here, which I'm going to have to explain because it's got bits of Hebrew put into the English here, explaining the whole concept. So he starts off, and as you can see, there's a give and take. There's questions and there's answers here. So he first of all points out a contradiction. He says, he brings 2 sources in Avodah Zarah, page 3, and Sanhedrin 59, that say that a Nochri, which is another word for Gentile, who engages in Torah is like a Kohen Gadol, i.e. a high priest. Mm-hmm. And there it quotes a verse where it says that a person will do and live. And it doesn't say priests, Levites, and Israelites. Rather, it says the man. And by bringing that verse, the Talmud there in those 2 places is proving that a Gentile who would study Torah is considered like a high priest from the fact that it says the man. So that would seem to go against this idea that they're not considered man, right? Because over there it's proving from that verse, from the fact it says the man, therefore Gentiles are included. So what is it? Are Gentiles included in the concept of the man or excluded? So the Tosfos answers that over there it might be a different opinion. It might be the different opinion of Rabbi Shimon. Okay, so we ask. There's another opinion that it's a different rabbi, so it's still going to be difficult, and it brings yet another passage from the Talmud, from Croesus, and over there it brings a verse which says, on the flesh of man, when it's talking about anointing oil, there's a special oil that used to be used to anoint people, like prophets and kings and eventually the Messiah, which is why it's called anointed. And it's a special type of oil. And the verse there says, on the flesh of man. And the Talmud there in Croesus learns that from the fact it says man, therefore it does not include a Gentile. So here we have a contradiction. Right? When it says man, does it include or does it exclude? And as you can see, Tosfos continues, right?
Josh, so it's
Yes?
a very good discussion on semantics, and somebody who understands the nature of the Talmud a little bit understands what's happening here. The thing is, when you continue doing this, those who already have an opinion formed here will completely zone out and will focus on one thing that you said, which is,
Right.
look, he admits Gentiles are not considered human.
So is it worth actually stepping back and explaining what the Talmud is?
Maybe
and,
very briefly, yeah,
because we're having a Daf Yomish here.
I mean, I think what the point that I'm showing you here is that you've got question, answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you take any step along the way before you get to the conclusion, you've not got the conclusion. You've not got the resolution of the debate.
Mm-hmm.
So even in a commentary like Tosfos, right, you've got here questions and answers. And only once you get to right at the end of a passage will you finally see the conclusion and what does the Talmud actually say, and what therefore is the law, or what therefore is, well, the summarized point, the concluded point.
Mm-hmm.
Anything before that, you're not going to get a real picture. So whenever you get something from the Talmud, or commentaries on the Talmud, or anything like that, you've got to first see, is what I'm looking at the middle of a debate or the end of the debate? Because only when you get something at the end of the debate have you got something that might actually reflect reality.
And
That's
just to add to that very, very briefly, so the Talmud is basically a number of conversations, and when someone's interested in learning what the halakha is, what the law is, you're looking for the Talmudic conclusion, which is what Josh is describing, and that's ultimately what we care about. You got an insight into how Jews study the text. One single sentence from, and this is just one commentary from the Tosafos, who maybe just shy of 1,000 years ago, put together this commentary on the Talmud, which just goes to show you the level of conversation around each verse, which is why it's absurd for a Jewish person to see Daniel take 5 lines from a 2 million word book, and each of those 2 million words, I don't know how many sentences that is, will have commentaries like this, multiple commentaries. This is just one of many, which is how Jews will read to understand and understand what the Talmudic conclusion is, what the law is, and it's not how Daniel presents.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What's very interesting is, what's very funny here is when you go on his article here, where he says you can find all the sources, you will see him do this. It says here in the Babylonian Talmud, Bava Metzia 114b, we read, Jewish people are called men, but Gentiles are not called men. That's it. And then he moves on to the next source. This would be like, for example, let's say I'm having a conversation with somebody, I don't know, 1,000 years ago, and that person says, and somebody says, so when you go to this place and you encounter such people, you have to tell them, you have to say, hello, how are you doing to them? And then we get into a discussion where I say, okay, but when we go to the actual source which instructs us to do so, and we look at the word people there, we need to understand that what is meant by people is these people and not those people, because these people are called people, those people are not called people, right? But in the end, I'm having this discussion only to conclude that we are supposed to say, hello, how are you doing to those specific people. However, somebody who doesn't understand what the discussion is about might look at a transcript of that discussion and then focus on one point here, which says these people are called people, those people are not called people, and then take that as proof that the Talmud, or that this gathering of people, does not consider everyone humans, or doesn't consider everyone people. And that is pretty much what is happening here. The Talmud is not saying here that Jewish people are humans, and that Gentiles are not humans, and even that Gentiles are animals. Actually, Daniel Haqiqatjou, I think, is interestingly charitable with his interpretation here, because I've heard from many other people who pick these verses, these passages, add to this, and say that the Talmud says here that the Gentiles are animals, or even less than animals, which is something that you find nowhere at all. And this just shows to you how there is a big willful ignorance on their part, because it serves their agenda. If you actually go into the source, like he clicks on here, and he knows very well that nobody will click on here and actually read through this, except for maybe one or two people. If you click on here, you will see a long discussion, and take this discussion here, and then please make your conclusions. Which I'm saying sarcastically. It's probably very hard for somebody who doesn't understand what this book is to make any conclusion here by reading this. This is a long passage about a lengthy discussion. And remind me, guys, there is always a thing about the Talmud, isn't there? That a stereotype or something that people say about the Talmud, which is that it engages in a lot of hair splitting, a lot of very lengthy discussions about specific words and specific details that go on for a very long time. And that is what much of the Talmud is actually about. It is not a written book of laws. It is a written book of very lengthy and very detailed discussions, at the end of which you can derive laws from it.
I don't know if Josh will agree with this, but the way I like to explain the Talmud Bavli in its most simple form is, if you imagine that someone were to record the conversations that took place in a court as they were arriving at the law, this is like the court notes. And what we care about is the conclusion of those notes, to understand what the courts ultimately ruled. But because behind many of these verses is actually a legal ruling, which will have been established by a Beit Din, by a religious court. And so even the verse we're actually talking, that is actually included in a Talmudic conclusion. It's included in the Mishnah Torah, to explain which corpses impart ritual impurity when standing in a tent. It's not anything to do with who is a man, who isn't a man. It's to do with what imparts religious impurity, and to whom does it impart religious impurity. And it's trying to understand what the Torah is saying when it's a particular pasuk. And so the way I always explain it is, these are effectively the court notes. And unless you know the legal language to read the court note, you will struggle to see the Talmudic conclusion. And I myself will struggle to see the Talmudic conclusion, which is why we need all the commentaries and the codifications of law that have preserved what those rulings actually were. But Josh will possibly agree or disagree with what I've just said.
Partially, but to really sum it up, I know that there's a meme that's gone around in which they've said every aspect of the Talmud is satanic or something. Well, somebody put a counter meme, right? A very, very funny counter meme called every single aspect of the Talmud is pedantic. And it's true, because the Talmud, being a legal text of legal debates, is obviously going to be, to the eyes of those unfamiliar with it, very pedantic, right? And so there's a reason why when you read the Talmud, you don't find many basic statements, right? Nowhere in the Talmud does it say, there is a God. Why doesn't it say that? Because it's obvious. The Talmud doesn't say obvious things. The Talmud is saying things which are specific. The Talmud is saying things which are not so obvious. And so often you're getting arguments on the meaning of this word and how do we apply this law in such and such an extreme situation, right? It's basically, it's sophistry, it's pedantry, right? And it's got a place, it's got a, that's what it's all about, right? It's to say, it's like doctrine. No, it's not doctrine. It's debates. And
that's a good point, actually. The whole
conclusions at the end. I'll link the meme. It's very funny.
That is a good point to bring up. That it doesn't point out obvious things. It deals with the less obvious aspects, the details of it.
It's what we call. This is it about the non-obvious thing. Often the Talmud, one of the questions that will often raise on a previous statement is a one-word question, the word pshita, which means but that's obvious. What you just said is something that I didn't need you to tell me, and therefore, why do you bother saying it, right? And that's like considered like a big difficulty, a big attack on the previous statement when you learn a piece of Talmud, right? So, of course, you're not going to find things which are obvious in the Talmud. If you do, then they're going to ask, Pshita, it's obvious. Why bother saying that? And then they'll answer, oh, well, actually, it wasn't so obvious because of this, this, and this.
Nice.
I've linked the meme in the chat. You might want to show that. It's very funny.
It looks very anti-Semitic. I can't do that.
No, it's not. It's actually hilarious.
Here.
It's actually hilarious. Pedantic. And if you read the quotes there, it's just hilarious what they've managed to put there.
There is no Kiddush except in the place of the meal.
There might be a lot of insider jokes here.
I see it. Yeah. There was a recent synagogue. There was a recent meme. There was a recent thread of people saying the Talmud, this is the real Talmud, Judaism in its own words, and then there were just a bunch of fake quotes like these written by Jews just to make fun of the whole trend of exposing Judaism and all that. This reminds me.
But the funniest thing is that these are real quotes, and when you take anything in the Talmud without its full context, it just looks nonsensical. Because imagine literally just taking a statement out of a conversation.
A sword is like a dead body. Okay.
Like, in what respect? Right? Yeah, you'd have to look at the source and find out what on earth you're talking about.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. That's nice.
I think it makes the point very well.
Upon recommendation by Joseph, I actually also linked to this website and said during the debate that you can look it up, and I actually showed this as an example because this is specifically the claim that Daniel Haqiqatjou makes at the very beginning, where he says non-Jews are not humans, and he quotes Bava Metzia 1:114, and one of the main articles on this website, which is angelfire.com, specifically deals with this and just shows that this is a very nonsensical argument. It first shows the details of this conversation from which this is taken, and then it shows how there are, for example, here contradictory statements. And what do you now take as a fact? It says here,
exactly
for example,
what the Tosfos was saying.
Yeah. A Gentile has the ability to purchase land in Israel in order to dig holes in caves, as it says in Psalms. As for the heavens are the Lord's, but the earth he has given to mankind. Suddenly it refers here to Gentiles as mankind. So how do you exactly reconcile this with the claim that, according to this passage here, Gentiles are not included in mankind?
Exactly.
And so on.
And to know the answer, read the end or read the end of Tosfos. He gives the same answer. He's quoting Tosfos.
Nice. Very nice. Very nice. This is why you shouldn't
rush to conclusions.
Yes, precisely.
The Talmud also teaches that all non-Jews are akin to dangerous animals, or more specifically, snakes. Hence, all non-Jews should be killed. The Talmud states, kill the best of Gentiles, smash the head of the best of snakes. Other Jewish religious texts.
I don't know if you want to go lengthily into the very same into this again,
yeah, sure.
But
absolutely.
Josh, what do you say?
Yeah, for sure. And in fact, Angel Fire dealt with this as well. I read this years ago. It's just so obvious to me at this point that when you read cryptic statements, which are generally agadic statements, which means they're not legal statements like that one, usually the source will be from a midrash. And so the rule is that when you find one of these agadic statements, the more cryptic, non-legal statements in the Talmud, what you need to do is go back to the original source, which is one of the early midrashim. In this case, the source is in the Mechilta. So I'm going to link in the chat to the original source of the statement, where you can see it in its full context and understand what was this statement actually talking about. When Rav Shimon ben Yochai said, Hakosha Shabagoyim Hog, kill the best of the Gentiles. What was the context of this? What was he talking about? And what you'll see, it's the bit that's highlighted. If you go down underneath that, you'll see the English of that. And you'll see it's talking about a battle. It's talking about a battle. Here we see there was a battle in which even the virtuous ones of the Egyptians came to fight against the Jews. And therefore, we say, even in a war, you don't start thinking, who's the virtuous soldier on the other side? Who's not the virtuous soldier on the other side? No, you're just going to kill all of them, right?
Yeah.
That's how it works in a war. If you start thinking, you're going to get killed.
See, now somebody's going to take this part and say, look, he said kill all of them. This just proves that we're right. But yeah, so the passage here specifically, if you look into it, especially Christians will be familiar with the history of this, of what this is talking about. Muslims should be familiar with it, although they're not familiar with the sources themselves. Anyone else can understand the reference here quite well. It talks about biblical history. After he took 600 choice chariots, whence came the horses required for the chariots? If you would say from Egypt, is it not written? And so on. It talks about this, and it says, we find then that the cattle driven off by those who feared the word of the Lord proved to be an impediment to Israel, whence our Shimon says, the best of the Gentiles kill, the best of the serpents crush its head. It is specifically talking about a state of war in which there are opponents where you are not meant to differentiate between who and what your opponents are. They are your enemies. You are fighting already, which is why you are supposed to simply kill your enemy, right?
Exactly.
That's what's happening here. Yeah. Okay.
Can you imagine if in the First World War there were soldiers shooting at each other, and there's a guy thinking to himself, I wonder if the guy on the other side is a virtuous person or not. I probably shouldn't kill him just in case. Like, what are you talking about? What are you doing? What are you doing? Go. You're going to get killed.
Yeah, because if you think like that, you're going to get eradicated.
You're going to die.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I think just the other thing to stress is what Josh was saying at the beginning. This also isn't law. This is the Midrashim are there to teach you a lesson, a moral lesson, usually not always. And that when it comes to the laws of war, there's an entire chapters of codifications of law that deal with what are the laws when you go to war. But with the Midrashim, it is there to teach you lessons, to life lessons.
And that's the lesson here.
Nice. Somebody just brought up something in the chat. Where was that? Kendra Lowry said, as a Christian, I was pulling my hair out when he used the King James Version. It has archaic language. So many statements mean something very different in today's language. With respect, I have the very same attitude whenever somebody uses the King James Version, for example, to engage in specific debates about the meaning of the Bible. And as a non-Christian and non-Jew, I don't know if you can value my opinion as much there as a Christian or Jewish debater's opinion on that. But this specifically is the problem. Like when I read the Bible to understand it, I don't go to the King James Version. I go to one that is more close to the literal wording. Where in the King James Version, you will read the Bible in a language that is considered very outdated by today's standards, and it won't help you directly, closely understand what the Bible is actually saying.
I'd go even further. I'd go even further than that, AP, and I actually say this with love to all the Christian audience. But you guys are being hoodwinked. You're being duped. With you, AP, I forgive you because
thank you.
You're not a religious person. But if you are a religious Christian and you believe that Moses wrote the words of God on the Torah in Hebrew, and then you rely on English translators to interpret and mistranslate and corrupt that text, you're going to lead yourself astray. You're going to get yourself into all manner of theological problems. And so if you truly believe that this is the word of God, read it in the original language, read it in Hebrew. Like, you can go to Sefaria, just as we've been doing, and you can read the English with the Hebrew until you get to the Hebrew. But it's a mistake that so many Christians make, is they rely on English translations when you don't need to. You can read it in the original language.
Okay, so everybody learn Hebrew now. That's what Joseph is saying.
If you're a Christian,
All right.
Texts like the Zohar and other Kabbalistic writings hold that Jews are semi-divine, and in some cases can even be worshipped by non-Jews. More specifically, they have divine souls that are connected.
I had some comments about him quoting or using the Zohar as a source to derive, moral teachings and things like that. I don't know if you would agree with me thinking this is a very strange source to go to if you want to, make accusations or accuse Judaism of being, I don't know, having a superiority issue or anything like that. So the Zohar is vastly dealing with mysticism and with spirituality and with Kabbalistic stuff, right?
Yeah. I'm going to link something else in the chat, which is a brilliant article discussing the Kabbalistic position on the difference between Jewish and Gentile souls. It's been done by a fellow by name of Rabbi Moshe Shulman, a brilliant article, which he goes through the sources. And what you'll notice is when you go on Haqiqatjou's source page, he doesn't actually quote the Zohar.
Oh, he doesn't?
He doesn't even link to the Zohar. If you read it, he doesn't even bring a single quote from the Zohar. It's actually... See, he says other Jewish religious texts like the Zohar, blah, 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 blah. Does he quote the Zohar? No. Nothing.
Huh.
Nothing. He just throws it out there into the ether. Oh, and if you click on the link, it's not even a quote. It's not even a link to the Zohar. It's like, seriously? The Zohar is literally on Sefaria for everyone to read, and...
That's funny.
And it's like, you're not even sourcing it, which is how you know he's lying. Because how you know he doesn't know what he's talking about.
That is funny. I didn't even notice that because I to be honest, I didn't even look up his sources after we were done. I thought I'm going to just wait with that. Huh, he didn't even link to it. That's very, very funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And here he goes through a whole thing through the traditional Kabbalistic sources, explaining what it means that there's a difference between the two souls. That's basically it.
So, you disagree?
Anyone who wants to read it can read it. It's on judaismsanswer.com.
But Daniel Haqiqatjou claimed that according to the Zohar, Gentile souls are not souls, or they're satanic souls, or something like that. He said later on.
Nonsense.
So, nonsense,
Lies.
You say?
Lies, damned lies, but without any statistics.
Well, am I supposed to trust you now, who comes with all of these large sources that nobody's going to read, or am I supposed to go with Daniel Haqiqatjou, who is supposed 2 words that are easy to read for everyone?
Well,
see, my argument was so strong that he.
Wow. You sure rattled him with that question. If he's rejoined in 2 minutes.
Josh, it says device is not connected. Something happened to your browser or your camera and microphone. I don't know. You need to reconnect.
So we can continue while we wait for Josh to fix.
Connected to God. By contrast, non-Jews lack souls connected to God. As a result, they're literally subhuman animals.
Wait, this is very weird. His wording there. Lack souls, not just lack souls, but it's lack souls connected to God.
Connected to God. By contrast, non-Jews lack souls connected to God. As a result, they're literally subhuman animals.
This is very interesting because if you only listen to what he's saying, it's very hard to conclude why, even if everything he says is true, why that would be a conclusion. Why from that you would derive the conclusion that therefore Gentiles are subhuman animals. I don't even get it. That doesn't logically follow. But
none of this logically follows. It's just stringing together. They're not even strawman. They're just insults. It's complete fabrications. But welcome back, Josh.
Yeah, sorry about that. I moved the plug, and it all came crashing down.
come on, my question was so powerful that you got scared and you dropped.
I think I was in the middle of an answer. I can't remember what I was saying now.
Okay, all right.
But I was listening to the next quote that he was saying. They're literally subhuman animals. Like, at least bring a source. At least bring a source if you're going to make a claim. Come on.
So there's no source, you say?
He's just naff. He doesn't even quote a source.
Okay. Well, it's easier that way. So that means he's right. So.
The notion that non-Jews are animals is also reflected in Jewish law. For instance, if an adult male Jew rapes a non-Jewish girl as young as 3 years old, the girl is to be executed. This is because, according to Jewish law, when a Jew has sex with an animal, that animal must be put to death. Since the raped non-Jew child is like an animal, she is likewise put to death. This rule is mentioned in the Mishnah Torah by Maimonides, who's considered by Jews to be the greatest legal scholar of the Torah. Maimonides writes, if a Jewish male enters into relations with a Gentile woman, when he does so intentionally, she should be executed. She's executed because she caused a Jew to be involved in an unseemly transgression, as is the law with regard to an animal. This applies regardless of whether the Gentile woman was a minor of 3 years of age or an adult, whether she was single or married. It applies even if the Jew was a minor of 9 years old. She is executed, end quote.
So explain yourself, Josh.
Sure.
Guilty.
Sure. So I'll be honest with you. When I first, not that I've been dishonest till now, but when I first read this passage, I was a bit taken aback, and I started to have a look at the commentaries, as you do. The first thing that I noticed, which I was quite baffled about, was that the main commentary on the Mishnah Torah, called the Maggid Mishnah, said, I don't know what the Rambam's talking about. Where does he get this from? What's his source? So that was odd, because you don't often get that from the major commentary. And then I looked at the Aruch HaShulchan, which is a much more contemporary legal work from the early 1900s, and he says that the source is not the source is a verse in which but from Numbers chapter 31, and he goes on one, and I started thinking a bit more about the language that the Rambam uses here in the Mishnah Torah, and I remembered something that I learned back when I was in yeshiva, that there's a difference in language in Hebrew between the word for regular in legal Hebrew anyway, between the word for regular intercourse and the word for rape. Mm-hmm. The word for regular intercourse is bia, which literally means coming, with an O, and that's the usual word for intercourse, and that is in reference to consensual sex. And the word for rape is ones, which means to force something. And in the verb form, when we say a person rapes somebody else, we say hama'anes, right? The raper, the rapist. That's the way you do it. But when you have the word habor, which is the word we have here, it's a word for consensual sex. Mm-hmm. Now, the question is, how can you have someone having consensual sex with how can you have someone having consensual sex with a child? And the answer is you can't. So what is the Rambam teaching us? If the Rambam is really saying that you're allowed, that if you rape a non-Jewish child, then the non-Jewish child is executed, then have it all the way from birth then. Why have a cutoff point of 3 years old? And the answer is because what the Rambam's giving you here is an extreme case. If there was a theoretical world in which a 3-year-old could consent, which we know is not possible in what we see is 3-year-olds are incapable of consent, and so are 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds, etc. Right? If you had a world in which they could consent, and you had a world in which 2-year-olds could consent, it wouldn't matter that the 2-year-old consented, because it's not considered legal intercourse underneath 3 years old, which is a concept we find all the way around the Talmud. What's considered legal intercourse and what's not considered legal, i.e. not permitted. We're talking about what is legally considered to be intercourse. What we talk a lot, it's called lomdus, in which we have actions described by certain words in legal terms, but when it's done in a slightly different way, it's not considered the same action. I know this sounds very complicated. But over here in the Rambam, he says habor. He's talking about consensual sex in an extreme case that we know doesn't exist. That's basically what we're talking about here. It's not talking about rape.
Okay, so I have 2 questions to this. One of them is, so you would say that one aspect of it is a misrepresentation, which is that his claim is that that according to Jewish law, or according to Maimonides, Rambam, a 3-year-old that is raped would be executed. You would say that is a misrepresentation because it is not talking about rape, it is talking about a hypothetical situation, and using basically the age of 3 to any age as an exaggerated general statement to imply it doesn't matter who it is. It will. It is done, but it is for consensual sex. Now here I have an issue with that. So that clarifies a very important aspect of the situation here. However, I have another question. So you would, however, as far as I understand, it is, however, true that a Jewish girl, if she has intercourse willingly with a Gentile, in this case, would be punished or executed under the very Jewish law that Maimonides references. Is that correct?
So what?
So a Jewish girl with a non-Jewish man. No, that's not punishable by death. That's punishable by lashes.
Okay. I think can I just jump in, because there are a few things to establish is what we're actually looking at. So I think one of the most important things Josh mentioned at the beginning was that no one knows whether Rambam, Maimonides, who was a 13th century rabbi, got this from. That's not true, did you say, Josh?
12th century.
12th century, 1200s, wasn't he, Rambam?
1200s. No, 1100s. 1100s he died.
Okay. I thought that, okay.
You're thinking of the Ramban.
Okay. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm sure you're right and I'm wrong, so you can correct me on the century he lived in. But either way, what Maimonides is, or the Rambam is famous for, is basically condensing all of the written law from the Torah and the oral law from the Talmud, like the Talmudic conclusion we were talking about, and placing it all in this one book called the Mishnah Torah. So somebody, if they were to read it from cover to cover, would understand what the law is. Now, he famously is cryptic with his sources. He doesn't write exactly where he gets something, but other commentaries have come along and explained where it comes from based on the language that he uses. But this one, to my understanding, as far as I'm aware, and I think Josh said the same thing, it hasn't been sourced. And so this is Rambam's opinion, Maimonides' opinion. Now, what I'd also add is that in Judaism, we do have capital punishment. There is a concept of the death sentence, but it's a deterrent. In Islam, you have the concept of witnesses, etc. They get that from Judaism. The caveats to carry out a capital punishment are so much so that it virtually is impossible to do. There have been instances, but it was very, very, very difficult to actually kill something. So whenever you hear of the capital punishment, what you're really thinking of is this is something that Judaism considers so extreme that you should do everything you can to run away from this sin. Now, the second thing is what this is effectively talking, if I've understood the verse correctly, is it's talking about when a Jewish man has relations with a Gentile woman.
Oh yeah.
a woman. And so
to quickly clarify, I actually misspoke there earlier. I did it the wrong way around, right? So
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, but that's fine. But what it's then going on to say, like, how many Jews do you know, AP? How many Jews do you know, Josh? I know a fair few, and I know a lot of Jews that have had relations with non-Jewish women.
Yeah.
And the entire Jewish community is obviously, when it comes to marriage, we want the continuation of our people. We want Jews to marry Jews and have Jewish children. But when somebody doesn't do that and they get married to a non-Jewish woman, while we would rather she convert to Judaism or they had a Jewish family, no one's going around and killing these people. Like, when was the last time anyone heard of a Jewish honor killing? It's never happened. This is not our tradition. And so I think it's very important to caveat what it is that we're reading here and what was the purpose of a capital sentence in the Jewish context. It is an extreme deterrent. And I just thought it would be, I wanted to insert that as we're getting into very legal. This is exactly what the law means. This is what I interpret it means. And I think at its basic, like, capital punishment is the deterrent. This is the Rambam has written this, but no one's been able to find a source. And ultimately, Jews don't go around killing people for dating non-Jews. It's just not, doesn't happen.
So would you guys say Josh is still listening, but he's disconnected again? Very unprofessional here. So when Maimonides comments on these issues, and he says, for example, if a Jewish male enters into a relation with a Gentile woman, when he does so intentionally, she should be executed. Is this something when Maimonides says something like this, and Daniel Haqiqatjou, for example, says Maimonides is the most respected Jewish scholar. Many argue that, and it is arguably true that he's one of the most respected scholars. Are we supposed to take this as a general true statement on Jewish law, or simply something that Maimonides says and Jews in general don't accept?
The overwhelming majority of Jews do not follow the Mishnah Torah. I'm actually one of the few that sees this as the most authoritative, not this particular verse we're talking here, but the codification, the Mishnah Torah, as the most, as one of the best representation of what the Talmudic conclusion actually was. Most Jews are downstream of a book which Daniel called Shulchan, the Shulchan Aruch, and the Shulchan Aruch worked on the basis that you had the Rif, who was like a couple of generations before the Rambam, and basically the teacher was his father, the Rambam and the Rosh, and so the Rosh was from Europe, the Rif and the Rambam were also from
the Rif was from Tunisia,
I was going to say North Africa,
Rambam was from Spain,
then North Africa. But basically, he then came up with like a voting system and says whatever the consensus is, that's what the law is. And then from there, you have multiple traditions that kind of downstream of the Shulchan Aruch. But so the Rambam is authoritative. He is a very, very prominent figure in Jewish law and philosophy. In most cases, I believe he accurately represents the Talmud, but many would argue against me on that. But in this particular one, I don't think it is. And I don't know where the Rambam got this from. And I'm not one to argue with the Rambam because I know very little. And he knew the entire oral law and written law off by heart, memorized the whole thing. So I'm not.
So would you guys say, if I asked you both the question, and I don't want to put anyone here on the spot here, but so if we took this exactly as it is quoted, exactly as Daniel Haqiqatjou presents it, that according to Jewish belief, which I know is a very, very, very rough thing to say, but he likes to do that. According to Jewish belief, if a Jewish male enters into a relation with a Gentile woman and does so intentionally, then she should be executed and he will get punished as well. Would you guys say that this is not something that you accept?
Well, I'll give my answer. We don't know what other rabbis have as an opinion on this, besides for the Maggid Mishnah and the Aruch HaShulchan, because the Rambam talks about certain areas of Jewish law that other rabbis didn't even bother talking about because they're not relevant to a time when we don't have a Sanhedrin. And the Rambam here is talking about death penalties and stuff. Death penalties are not applicable without a Sanhedrin. And today we don't have a Sanhedrin. In fact, we haven't had a Sanhedrin for approximately 2,000 years. And so we've not had the power of death penalties for about 2,000 years. And it's not going to be restored, most probably, until the Messiah comes. Now, that's something that non-Jews don't need to fear for two reasons. Number one, because when the Messiah comes, people won't sin anymore. And so there's nothing to fear anyway, because you won't be singing. You won't be sinning. And second of all, you don't believe that our Messiah is coming at all. So what are you worried about, right? Let's talk about the here and now. And the Rambam's laws like this one, which are only when there's a Sanhedrin that can judge about whether someone's going to be put to death. And this particular death penalty, the main commentary on the Rambam was not really sure if it really applies, because he says, I don't know the Rambam's source. It seems like a very strange Rambam, right? Read the Maggid Mishnah on this thing. Unfortunately, it's not been translated, but anyone can go and have a look on Sefario and have a look and read it in the Hebrew. If you need help with translation, hit me up on Twitter. I'll help you out. What you can see is that even when there's a Sanhedrin, it's not clear that this would be done. And now we don't have a Sanhedrin, so for sure it's not going to happen.
I see.
So for me, you asked the question. For me, no, I don't know the source of this. I don't believe it's binding. I also would caveat that the capital punishment when the Sanhedrin stood was a rarity. It said that a court that put one person to death in 70 years was considered a bloody court. And when you contrast that to how many people America kills each year, they were executing far fewer people than the Americans and the most nations today. The death sentence was a deterrent. I do not believe Judaism would put to death anyone in the situation you've described, but I don't know what the Rambam's talking about. I don't know where he's got it from, but I'm not one to argue against him. So clearly I'm
Joseph,
not.
Don't worry, you're in very good company with the Maggid Mishnah. He also didn't understand this Rambam.
That's
the whole thing with Judaism, by the way, is we're in. If you go to any Jewish house, you will see floor to ceiling bookshelves filled with Sepharim, filled with Jewish books. And all of these books are commentaries on commentaries on commentaries on commentaries of the Torah. And for thousands of years, in different generations, with different values, where Jews have existed, the commentaries have been written. If you were to read the commentaries that are being written today in 500 years, they would come across as very liberal, progressive. They would reflect the zeitgeist when contrasted against commentaries from 500 years ago. We are a fluid people that are trying to understand and continuously make relevant the commandments that were given to us at Mount Sinai that we strive to follow today.
I've just realized that there was a point that Haqiqatjou was making about this that we haven't actually addressed. And that is the point that he's saying that this is supposedly that this passage in the Rambam is supposedly comparing non-Jewish women to animals, right? So this is something we have not yet addressed because we kind of skipped over it and looked at the thing which looks much more controversial, which we've dealt with now.
But just to jump in there, the reason that seems more controversial to us is because we are not paedophile. The apologists like Daniel Haqiqatjou, activists, I think, advocates you were calling them. And so he probably didn't even acknowledge that that's unpalatable to the most sensitivity.
She's executed because she caused a Jew to be involved in an unseemly transgression, as is the law with regard to an animal. That's the part you were talking. Okay.
Yeah, so that's really why he's brought this. And the answer to the point that he's raising is that it's not saying that they are animals or that they are like animals. It's saying, the Rambam is saying that just like we see that by animals, we kill the animal because it's been involved in a sin with a Jew. Therefore, the same thing would apply to a non-Jew. It's not saying, therefore non-Jews are like animals. No, that's not what it's saying. It's saying that here we have a case where a Jew has engaged in a sin with something or someone which is not a Jew, in this case an animal. And here we have another case that the Rambam is bringing, where a Jew is involved in a sin with a human being who is not a Jew. Can we make a comparison? Or as we say in Yiddish, a Zustellung. And the Rambam makes such a Zustellung. The Rambam just says, this is a comparison here in the law that we have something that's involved in a sin with a Jew where we kill the animal. So with the non-Jew, therefore, the same law would apply. This is a legal reasoning. It's known in the Midrash as a binyan av, which is you have a law which looks like something in one place, and therefore would apply it in a somewhat similar case.
This sounds like an example of what we earlier called hair splitting, and in detail, arguing certain things in very deep detail, making such comparisons. On the surface, it sounds pretty bad, but when you understand the point that is being made, is not that bad. It's not as bad as it actually sounded at the beginning.
Yeah,
I think it's exactly that, AP. I think if it was talking about dropping a drop of milk into a chicken soup and what you have to do to the utensils after that's happened, because you can't mix milk and meat, we wouldn't be. Well, this is the reason this is shocking is it's a shocking subject, and I just want to continuously reiterate: the Jewish courts rarely executed people. The capital sentence was there as a deterrent. No one knows where, or at least I certainly don't know where the Rambam got this from. And I think I just because I can see the chat, and I imagine that many people will be struggling to follow this conversation. So I think the only thing that I would really press when discussing this entire subject is that the death sentence was rarely carried out, and the Sanhedrin that was responsible for carrying out this death sentence put in place so many gezeras and rules and laws that would minimize the chance of people being killed, as well as the actual the law itself, which makes it very difficult to carry out these sentences. The death sentences were basically unheard of in Jewish courts.
That's a quote directly from the Talmud, isn't it? Which says that a court that sentences somebody in 70 years is a bloody court or something.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I'll get up the quote for you.
I remember reading that. I actually posted that very quote in a video that I made a while ago about whether all religions are the same or not. So I'm kind of familiar with that. King Josiah of Judah said, "How do you feel about Abdul Wahid being suspended from the NHS?" Abdul Wahid is the UK leader of Hizb ut-Tahrir, the group that was just outlawed in the UK. Finally, Hizb ut-Tahrir is a caliphate advocate organization that believes in establishing the caliphate and applying Sharia everywhere in the world. The guy went on Piers Morgan after going on a protest and calling for jihad everywhere, and made a complete fool of himself and got banned. I was trying to interact with his Twitter account yesterday, but then I noticed that he actually blocked me, which is very funny. He was suspended from his job as a doctor. What do I think about it? I don't feel sorry at all about it. That's all I feel. Yeah.
One thing I would add is Hizb ut-Tahrir.
National health.
The National Health Service is publicly funded. Why should we have a terrorist sympathizer involved with it? Doesn't make sense, does it?
Yeah, exactly. Joseph, you were saying?
I was just going to say, many people mistake freedom of speech for freedom of consequence. And so if you are advocating if you're advocating for jihad, I mean, you're effectively Abdul Wahid was banned from practicing in the NHS because of what he said. Hizb ut-Tahrir, to my knowledge, have never carried out terrorist activity. What they do is they advocate for war. They advocate for jihad. They encourage what we saw on October the 7th. And so in a free country, as long as you're not actually inciting violence, you should be free to say things. And I think the line with Abdul Wahid was that his organization is actually inciting violence. They're literally standing on British streets calling for the armies of the Muslim world to wage jihad on the Jews in the Middle East. So freedom of speech is not freedom of consequence. People should be free to say whatever they want, but there can be ramifications. But there will almost certainly be ramifications when you incite violence.
Oh, yeah.
Nicely, nice. Panzer of the Lake said, AP, are those your Mossad agents? No, they are actually working for this very same Mossad handler that also employs me and pays me.
I actually think the commenter is actually a Mossad agent because there's a tank in his profile picture.
Oh, so, good catch.
So I think this is a psyop.
Yeah, it is. I want to ask these gentlemen what their opinion of the Ram Mandir is, and we Indians would support the third temple. What is your opinion on that? See, they don't know what that is. The Ram Mandir is a Hindu temple under construction in Ayodhya. There was recently a controversy. I don't know if you guys seen that, but in India, where where there was previously a mosque, which was called the Babri Masjid, it was demolished a long time ago, decades ago, over
30 years, 90s, I think.
Yeah, and recently, and Hindus always considered that place holy, even before Muslims came and built a mosque on top of it. So they considered that whole mosque an act of provocation and war against them. And now a temple, which Hindus believe is at the birthplace of Rama, a holy figure in Hinduism. They built the temple. They built a temple in place of that mosque. So the question here is, what are your thoughts on it, if you have any thoughts at all? And that's it. Yeah.
So mine, one of the main things I would say, it's been fascinating to look at how the West has covered this. So if you read the BBC article, there's no mention of the Hindu origins. It's just the Hindus are building a temple on top of the site where they destroyed a mosque. And I see a lot of parallels with how Israel is portrayed in the media as to how India is portrayed in the media. And so there's very common narratives. We were both decolonizing our lands from the British, from previous Islamic conquests, etc. And both are actually, in my opinion, diverse democracies with large minority communities. As for destroying any building, I wouldn't be for destroying the mosque, even though it was built on a holy site. But I also wouldn't be for destroying Masjid al-Aqsa. I don't believe it's a good thing to do, even if something has been built on your holiest sites, to go and blow up the holy sites of others that have been built centuries and stood for centuries. I do believe there will be a third temple, but I don't believe that we should go and blow up Masjid al-Aqsa. I think that would be an appalling thing.
I see your point about blowing it up, but don't you consider
it?
Don't you consider it very disrespectful that so that the Islamic armies or people would come and build a whole compound on top of your holy site?
So I'm going to give an honest answer for the Temple Mount. And just going to caveat it, I believe Christians are our closest friends today, but they weren't always. And the Temple Mount had been turned into a waste dump. And when the Muslims came along, they actually, to begin with, they allowed the Jews to ascend to Har Bayit, to ascend to the Temple Mount. And they permitted the Jews to build a house of prayer, a synagogue, effectively. But then they discarded that, and they moved us to another synagogue, still on the mount itself, and they built an octangle building, which today is known as Kubbat al-Sukra. It began as being a wooden structure, and then it was refined a few years later. Many of the Jews of that time looked at it. They didn't see Muhammad as a prophet. We don't see Muhammad as a prophet, but we do see Muslims as practicing monotheism. And so many of the Jews of that period saw it as a positive. Today, I don't consider it. It will ultimately be where the Jewish temple stands, but it doesn't. And it will not come. I would not advocate, and I don't think any Jew ever should advocate for the destruction of those mosques. I think that both Kabbalah Sakra and Masjid al-Aqsa. I don't know. So to answer the initial question, it was the Harabite at the time when the Muslims built those mosques had been turned into a rubbish dump by the Christians. And so I'd say turning it into a place of monotheism, even if you are following a false prophet, is more befitting of the place than a rubbish dump. But inshallah, speedily in our days, we will see the rebuilding of the third temple, and the entire world will rejoice, including the Muslims, and it will become peacefully, and everybody will do it willingly, and there will be no destruction or insult caused to anybody. Amen.
Josh, what do you think? Do you agree?
Look, I don't know if the Muslims understood what they were doing when they built that shrine, and I'm not sure if they had understood what they were doing, anything would have changed. But I don't really blame them that they look. It's a holy mountain. And they clearly recognized that there's certain sparks of holiness over there, and they decided, yeah, we'll make our shrine there, and they never thought Jews would end up having power there again, so makes sense. But yeah, don't blow up Masjid al-Aqsa or any mosque. It's not very nice. Don't blow up things. This is a general word of advice to people. Yeah. Blowing up things is not nice, so don't do it.
Yeah,
it's
the
not
only
nice
community
is a very nice
I know,
way to put it.
Yeah, the only community I can think of that is presently going around and destroying shrines and holy sites in Syria are not Jews, and it's not Hindus, and whatever's happened in the past has happened in the past, but we're responsible for tomorrow, and so yeah, don't blow things up.
It's not very
Except
nice.
The like
it's a
button,
very
like button, like, subscribe, but
oh, yeah.
It's impolite. It's very rude to blow up things. Very rude. It's not to be done in polite society.
Yeah. Nice. Pronote22 gifted 5 memberships for the channel. Thank you so much. I will tell my Mossad handlers about this, and they will probably send you a reward for that. Notice that the Jews clearly have lost to Daniel. His head is bigger, which must mean better. That is how you lost the debate. Apostate, you had no head. Huh.
Josh, get your Borsalino. Get your
Genius.
Borsalino.
We should have got some guy with a Strimble on.
Yeah.
He would have beat him hands down.
Jesse Johnson said, AP, here's some more of that laundered Jew money I've been working on for you. They don't trust me with more, so this is all for now. It's good. It's acceptable enough.
I'm sorry, that's only $5. That's not Jew money.
Yeah, $5 unacceptable.
Jean K. Capra sent me genuine shekels and said, hello, Israeli fan. How can I contact you in Israel, and do you need help with the trip? Oh, I'm organizing a trip to Israel. I'll have some more details on that. I'll get it done. I'll keep it. I'll give more updates on that. Call of Ghidorah said, hello, AP, a true believer here. Really? Have your thoughts about doing a live reaction to Bassem Youssef's second interview with Piers Morgan? I don't want to talk about that guy. I don't know. I feel like I don't know if you guys heard of Bassem Youssef, but he was on Piers Morgan, and he had this whole sarcastic debate with Piers Morgan about the whole Israel-Palestine issue, and I don't like the guy. And I don't like what he has to say.
I don't understand why people care about Piers Morgan.
No, I have no problem with Piers Morgan. I just Bassem Youssef is the one that I specifically. I don't
speaks with a forked tongue. He's I'm with you, AP.
Yeah.
Don't know him. No.
Yeah. Anyway,
I just know Piers is just a bit silly.
And Ari Wasserman said, see, obvious Jew here again. Pedantry hasn't read any Jewish texts precisely because there isn't any CP in them. Ooh.
Oh. Wow. I'm just saying, I disavow. I disavow.
Yeah. Judaism could improve on that and making it more appealing to people like Daniel Haqiqatjou who are interested in attraction to Anyway, Nicholas Dakota. Nicholas Dakota said, "Where's the Jews for murdering Farfor?" Have you guys heard of Farfor?
Oh, is that the Palestinian cartoon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Palestinian
about Mickey Mouse.
Yes, the Mickey Mouse, produced by Hamas, which was killed by the Jews.
No, but what you don't realize is they can bring it back now because the end of the copyright.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. They had to kill Farfor after the first season. Had to have killed by the Jews after the first season. That's very, very interesting.
Okay.
I want to, since Farfor comes up, I want to quickly show you guys something from this Farfor documentary and ask you questions on whether that is true. It's an accurate representation or not. This is very serious stuff in the middle of responding to the Talmud, responding to Daniel Haqiqatjou's take on the Talmud.
Very, very serious.
Very, very serious stuff. And yeah, let's see.
What on earth?
What is happening?
Sounded like a djinn.
So here's.
ايش هالشيء؟
The Jew ate my homework.
Is it?
That's
is
the
it
oldest
true?
excuse in the book. The Jew ate my homework.
Is it true that people can't do their homeworks because the Jews bomb their homes and they can't find their notebooks? Is this? What do you guys have to say for yourselves?
Well, there's an old saying: "He who lives in a glass house should not throw rocks."
Huh. Literally. Interesting. All right.
But it is true.
Wait, it is true?
Yeah, we did eat their homework.
Oh, yeah. I imagine this thing. This is actually, I mean, what I just showed you is not something random, right? It's directly from, it was created by Fatih Hamad, who is one of the most notorious Hamas speakers and members, who also gave speeches on how every Palestinian should buy a knife for 5 shekels and go find a Jew and cut their throat and things like that.
Well, I've never heard of him, so he's not doing very well.
Well, that's the guy who created this show.
Yeah.
And in this show, they basically teach the children of Gaza that even when they don't do their homework, they can just blame it on the Jews. You know?
So
I mean,
the
to
only
be honest, that is genius. That is genius.
He's one of the leaders of Hamas, but the reason why Josh hasn't heard of him is we haven't yet took him to Speaker's Corner. So if anybody wants to bring him to Speaker's Corner to debate the Christians and the Muslims, we would happily sponsor.
I disavow. Don't bring terrorists to the UK.
Speaker's Corner's got enough. We're already full.
We
There's no
have
more room
enough
for-
terrorists in the UK. Look, what you can do is you can get on a dinghy like the rest of them. All right.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we can put him up in a hotel somewhere.
I think it would be a good idea to take him to Speaker's Corner, because then the Mossad would have a direct clue where to find him and how to take him out. So yeah. Anyway,
Teaching that non-Jews are animals and can be raped and discarded is the very definition of dehumanization, yet this is a core teaching of Judaism. Now, moving on to the second category, Judaism.
this is a core teaching of. Oh, wow.
Core teaching. That is.
I mean, it's funny. I didn't even pay attention to that detail here, but
Came to him in a dream. No.
Whether-
source provided.
whether what he just said about Maimonides and the source is true or not, whether it's correctly interpreted or not, concluding that this is a core thing in Judaism, a core teaching of Judaism. That's wow, man.
I mean, look, I'm like semi-learned, and yet before I saw this source being put on Twitter, I had never read it and I didn't know it existed. Right? That's how uncore it is. Right? I've had like the full Jewish education. I studied for 2 years in a yeshiva in Israel, and I had never heard of it. That's how uncore it is.
Huh.
That's a word. I don't know.
Why am I supposed to believe you or Daniel Haqiqatjou here? Obviously.
Well, obviously him. He's got a bigger hat.
For those who are asking, Joseph can be found on YouTube, Israel Advocacy Movement, and also on Twitter, Israel Advocacy Movement. Josh, your YouTube channel is
Jews at the Corner.
Jews at the Corner. I also just added it to the description, so you can find it down there. And
Cool.
your Twitter is
At Shire Pearl. It's the I'll link it in the chat. Hold on.
okay, fantastic. I'll link that in the description too. I'll add that all to the description. Okay.
Teaching of Judaism. Now, moving on to the second category, Judaism preaches a sacred system of racial apartheid law. Obviously, many religions, including Christianity and Islam, have rules which give preference to their own believers over non-believers. But Judaism takes this to an outrageous, almost comically evil degree. First of all, Judaism has a sacred command to kill all the world's idolaters and destroy all the world's religions. In the Mishnah Torah, Maimonides clearly...
Wait, why didn't you guys tell me about this?
This is serious hypocrisy. Like, oh my gosh, they have a rule to kill all the idolaters. Like, you're a Muslim. What are you talking about?
Strike the neck of
What
the
are you
kuffar.
talking about? What?
There's a complete lack of self-awareness here.
Like, if it was from a Hindu, I could understand, but you're literally a Muslim. What is your problem?
Yeah, for those who missed it, I also brought it up. In the Quran, chapter 9, verse 29, it literally instructs Muslims to, it says, fight those who do not believe in Allah and His Messenger and adopt the true faith, Islam. Fight them until they give the jizya willingly while they are humbled. And so this is then explained as
Sagirun.
basically fight and kill everyone who is not a Muslim, subjugate them, and turn them into your subjects, make them pay you protection money. If they don't accept that, kill them or enslave them. That's basically it. And Muhammad is also believed authentically to have said, I have been sent to fight the people until they testify that there is no God but Allah and I am His messenger. So it's very, very interesting for Daniel to bring this up out of everything against
Literally
the
throwing
Jews.
rocks from a greenhouse.
Yeah. But so coming to the fact, the fact that Judaism teaches racial superiority and commands the killing of everyone who is an idolater, so who is a non-Jew, what do you have to say for yourself, Josh?
Well, even if we go into like the full-on like death penalty mode in Judaism when this is Sanhedrin, there's no reason to say that this is something that applies specifically to idolatrous non-Jews. Right? Idolatrous Jews are also chayav misa. They're also liable to be executed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to say this is racism, no, it's an idolatricism, which you have as well, right? So that's when there's a Sanhedrin. And when there's no Sanhedrin, there's no death penalty, in which case we can't kill any idolaters. Not the Jewish idolaters and not the non-Jewish idolaters. So again, he's talking utter nonsense.
Is this one where it brings Avodah Kochavim 10:1? Because if it is, it's not talking about idolaters.
He doesn't even bring a source.
In one of them he does. In one of them he does.
Oh no, it is. It's 10:1. And that's
if you click on that, it's not even saying that. It's so if you click on the Hebrew, so if you click on the link,
Shiva Amamin, the 7 nations.
Yeah,
bad translation. This.
So the 7 nations are the Canaanites, and the Canaanites were sacrificing their children. They were like in the biblical narrative, they were the epitome of evil, and we weren't allowed to enter covenants with them because they literally sacrificed children to their false gods. But this is a biblical commandment dealing with 7 nations that don't exist today. It's got nothing to do with idolaters. Stam. It's talking it's talking explicitly about these 7 nations, the Canaanites.
This is very funny because I have encountered this in the past several times in Christian apologetics, where critics of Christianity, such as in atheists or Muslims in this case, would reference this and point out that the Bible and that Christianity is violent and intolerant as well. Where then Christians would deal with this and talk about how this is talking about the what you specifically just described, certain people engaging in behaviors that are completely unacceptable, whereas where then the Jews were commanded not to engage in any peace with those who sacrifice children, for example. It's very interesting that Daniel would actually bring this out of everything as reasoning to argue that Jews have a racial superiority idea where they are supposed to kill all the idolaters. I don't even understand. I can't even wrap my head around his justification, his reasoning here, which makes no sense.
What drove him to this madness?
If you continue reading as well, it goes on to say you can't kill them. It goes on to say you can't save them. So if one of these child murderers is like fallen down a pit, you shouldn't get them out because they'll go out and kill people, but you can't push them into the pit either. You can't take away their life. Yeah. It's the main thing to focus with this is not applicable today. And so what I find interesting is you'll get people, Daniel's probably not one of those people. I was going to say many of those that do dawah, many Muslims, will excuse away versus like strike the neck of kafar and contextualize it to certain historical battles. This is explicitly, there's no ambiguity here. It literally said these 7 nations, not one of these 7 nations exists today. They're all extinct. They don't exist. This is not a law which is relevant. It's one of the things that Josh was saying before. One of the reasons people respect the Rambam is he includes all of the laws. Doesn't matter how complicated, how impossible they are to be carried out. He will describe what the actual Talmudic conclusion is, or at least what he believes the Talmudic conclusion to be, for everything. So here's an example: like this law won't appear in other codifications of law because nobody goes to the trouble of writing down laws that can never be carried out. There are no Canaanite nations, so this law is not applicable today.
How dare you say that? I have heard that the Palestinians are actual Canaanites. So.
Yeah, they're not.
Very strange. Where you are right now, so if you see on the side, it says translations, and there's a number 4 next to it on the page there.
Yes,
on the side. So if you click on that, so it's very strange because I just went onto it myself without clicking on his link. Now his link is specifically to this particular translation. But the main translation on the Farfor website that comes out straight away is the Simon Glaser one, right over there, where it actually translates Sheva Amamin correctly as the 7 Canaanite nations. I think he's deliberately gone to a different translation in order to make it look worse than it is.
Wow.
When I just went on it just regularly from the Farfor website instead of clicking on his link, that's what I got.
He's so sneaky. He's such a Canaanite.
Wow. The thing is, I'm not actually shocked. I'm just saying wow because it turns out again that he's doing that. But the thing is, I actually disagree that this is his doing. What I actually think is that he didn't even bother looking these things up. It is just somebody who, somebody in his fan base or somebody who works on his website or something like that, sending him a specific translation of this as a link and him then using it. Because that's, to be honest, Daniel Haqiqatjou doesn't really read much. I'm not even joking. I know it sounds like an insult, but I'm not even joking. He
what are you
doesn't
talking
read.
about? His entire speech on your thing was completely scripted. That's why he didn't and ah a single time in his introductory speech. He was literally reading off a screen. That's literally what he was doing.
I know.
He didn't and ah a single time. He went straight on. Like, who does he think he is? Ben Shapiro? I mean, come on. Obviously, this is all scripted.
Let me show you
So
something.
yes, he
here.
can read, but only what he's written.
Joseph has probably seen
Now,
this already, but let me show you this here, Josh.
How many IDF soldiers have been killed in the past 2 months? The number is shocking when you compare it to 20 years in Afghanistan. Estimate is about 3,000. 3,000 IDF soldiers have been killed.
Wait, go back. What did that article say?
Look at this. Can you read the article? Can you read from the sentence here, Josh?
The
Can you see
IDF
that?
estimated that on the eve of the war, Hamas had 30,000 operatives inside the Gaza Strip, divided into 5 brigades, 24 battalions, and approximately 140 companies, according to a November 14th statement. The number of Hamas fighters killed is difficult to determine, but the IDF said up to 3,000 met their end. Oh my gosh! Oh, this guy.
You see it, right? I mean, you see it right away.
And this is why Daniel should not read the Talmud. I'm not being pedantic.
He's literally the epitome of the meme of literally taking a sentence out of context. Like, IDF set up to 3,000 met their end by November 1st. Ah, this must be IDF soldiers. Read the flipping, like, the... Oh my gosh, these people.
I mean, you can just start it from here. You don't even have to read much of a context. You can
Literally,
just start the sentence here.
Come on.
The number of
the same
Hamas
sentence.
fighters killed is difficult to determine, but the IDF set up to 3,000 met their end. So this is not about IDF killed. It's about Hamas terrorists killed, according to the IDF. He puts this on the screen. He highlights it, and he says, they say that 3,000 IDF soldiers have been killed. He can't read his own sentence, his own article here. He can't read the sentence in his article here.
Read the ratio. Beginning of the sentence. Before the comma.
This is how... this is the guy that we're dealing with. So...
Oh my gosh.
Man.
Guy's so dumb.
That's very disrespectful. It's very, very, very rude of you, Josh. Very rude of you. He's probably doing it deliberately. So,
if I remember correctly now, the rest of his sources are all secondary sources. It's all like such and such said such and such about such and such. But from memory, he doesn't bring any more primary sources. I think.
That's funny. That's funny. Let me go into a few super chats here. Rebecca Borg said, AP, I think you'd be interested in the Arab Muslim history of Malta. They conquered it from the Romans in 835 and lost it to the Normans in 1901. What email may I send some info to? I actually have, I did study quite some of the history of Malta, but still can have more if need be. You can send it to...
The Normans didn't exist in 1901.
Yeah, you can send it to ap@apostateprophet.com. No, it's meant to say, here, part 2. I meant 1091. They lost Malta to the Normans in 1091.
Hopefully, many more people that donate will make typos and then have to correct the typo with another donation.
I don't know if Daniel Haqiqatjou was one of our donors. He would just actually he wouldn't correct himself at all. He would just type nonsense. That's pretty much what he would do. So ap@apostateprophet.com. That's where you can send it. I am familiar with the history of Malta because of the history of the Ottoman Empire. But yeah, always open to it. Nicholas Turcotte said, "Where's the Jews' apology for murdering Farfor?" Do you guys have anything to say?
He was a mouse. He was eating on my cheese. That's why I killed him.
Thank you.
He's now hiding with the other rats in the tunnels of Gaza.
Kasparov 123 said.
Jokes already, Joseph.
Kasparov said, "Question: do Jews still believe waiting for a Messiah? How he is described? Can a Messiah be different than the true and equality? What? Than the true and equality? Yes.
Of course, we're waiting for the Messiah. That's why we're still Jews."
You heard it. You heard it right here. Amitai Sushals made a super shekels and said, "Pro tip from your Mossad employer: to make a kosher cheeseburger, add beacon to it. The negatives cancel each other." Oh, I didn't know that. Huh. Interesting.
No.
I have to talk with them about this. So
No,
Josh
that's
says no.
definitely not Mishnah Torah. That's
That's
It's from the Minchas Pinchas, the Hodges Todges.
St. Miles said, "Great show, AP, but
I'll show
on call.
you
We'll listen to you later." Thank you, St. Miles, for everything you do. Continue, keep going. Thank you. Ari Osman said, Pedantry must be a utilitarian since he assumes that Allah is a form of reflective morality and projects Islamic wonderfulness onto Jews. I have been thinking about that recently. That kind of just got picked up. I don't know. CG said, "Keep up the good work, AP." Thank you. I appreciate it. C. Chapman, thank you for inviting rabbis to help educate and fight mostly Jew hatred. New viewer from a couple of weeks. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it very much. Thank you, by the way, dear Rabbi Joseph and Rabbi Josh, for being here.
Not rabbis, but
Okay, just want to see a reaction. You guys are well studied in the matter, though, aren't you? Especially Josh, I would say.
No, I'd agree.
I'll
That's
tell
right,
you,
both.
actually, on one of the interpretation I gave earlier of the Rambam, I actually went to one of the more senior rabbis in Hendon and asked him if it's right. He said it's right. So I don't come to these myself. I go and ask the rabbis to see if these are the correct interpretations or not.
He's just trying to appear humble here. It's obviously much better than they make it look like. Stop Scabbing Man said, Daniel H. Pikachu certainly is shocking. That's true. That's true. That's Pikachu's power. Arya Wasaman, it's adorable that everyone in the chat on the live about defending Judaism from degenerate Islamic attacks is insulting Jews and demanding that they convert to another religion.
Love.
Well. Such is the way of the world. Uzair Jibril said, do you think if Daniel watches this video, he'll be less scared of Judaism or stick to his anti-Semitic tendencies? He will probably get even further. And he's probably watching right now. He admitted to me during the debate that he watches our live streams. So hello, Daniel.
Hello, Daniel. Please debate me. I will destroy you.
God is a DM said, would Allah be a good beg for a D&D campaign? I don't know about Dungeons and Dragons. I guess that's what this is referring to. Haqiqatjou says,
that's an amazing PFP. That's amazing.
Says shalom and
atonement upon you. It's a bit of a strange thing to say.
Nice. It actually, Robert Spencer recently started referring to him, to Daniel Haqiqatjou, as Haqiqatjou. So I don't know if you guys came independently to that, Joseph, but
I think someone mentioned it to me, so they probably got it from them, or they got it. I don't know.
Yeah. Rachel said Haqiqatjou is probably the most disingenuous, vile ideologist, PDF ball bag I have ever come across. This is very rude. Keep going, AP. You're amazing. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's very, very rude, Rachel. Very, very rude. And I agree completely. Yeah. Joshua Woodland said AP was destroyed by Daniel Haqiqatjou, but TikTokatjou. Just kidding, AP1. Thank you. He actually used TikTok as a source, by the way, during the debate. So Prono22 sent some super shekels and said, for the cult and because of the Jewish brother. What does it say in Hebrew here? I pretend I can't read Hebrew, just so my cover isn't long.
The eternal nation lives.
Nice. Thank you so much, and thank you for contributing to the cult that I'm building here. ES1002 said, why does Allah say you say Ezra is the son of God? Because it's true. Everyone knows that Jews say Ezra is the son of Allah. And why do you guys deny this? Josh, Joseph, it's
probably in Gad Shas.
It's actually Quran.
It's Josh, I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but the Quran actually makes a very interesting claim about which I
Yeah.
made a video, and I often
Yeah,
talk
I know.
about this because it says here the Jews say Ezra, or
Ezra
in
is the son
Arabic,
of God.
Uzair is
Uzziah.
the son of Allah. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
And the Christians say the Messiah is the son of Allah. So when it talks about the Christians, it accurately represents what they believe, but it talks about the Jews and says Jews say Uzair is the son of Allah. And to this day, nobody has any idea what this is talking about.
I came up with my own theory, and it's rubbish, but I don't mind sharing. So in Judaism, there's one of the names of God you're not allowed to say, and the Hijaz is right in very close proximity to Yemen, and the Jews of Yemen, they have that when Ezra, the scribe, told them to come back to return to Israel, they rejected it and they said, no, we're going to stay here. And they apparently, and I don't know how true this is, he cursed them. So as a consequence, they never called their children Ezra. And I wonder if there was some confusion there, that the Jews of this region wouldn't call their children Ezra. And then as a consequence, some Muslims got confused and thought they were worshipping Ezra, because we also don't say the name Hashem. We say Hashem, but we don't say one of God's names. And so that's the only thing I've got which can come halfway to explaining this very, very weird ayah. So, as I said, it's not very good, but it's the best I've got.
Yeah, it'll do.
But
Anything
even by
to
your
explain
explanation,
rubbish.
it would be, the conclusion would just be that the author of the Quran here misunderstood something and got something.
He misunderstood many things, but each to their own.
That's very Islamophobic of you. Shame on you.
How dare you, Joseph? How dare you?
I mean, to me, considering that the Quran is actually what Daniel Haqiqatjou thinks the Talmud is, which means it is considered it is believed by Muslims to be a divine revelation that is word for word law and word for word true, word for word unchangeable. I would say that this is a big piece of evidence that the Quran does not come from a divine source, and that it actually comes from an ignorant source. But of course, this is only something that an Islamophobe like me would say. I wouldn't say that you guys agree on that. Yeah.
So my thing is, truthfully, I think that all religions can be taken to good and bad places by all followers of them. I know Muslims who base their lives on the Sunnah, and they do incredible acts of kindness and charity, and truly wholesome people, and they base that all on the teachings of Islam. And then I go to Speaker's Corner, and I meet Muslims who read the same scripture and arrive at the most appalling and disgusting conclusions. And it just goes to show that anybody can take any religion to a good or a bad place, be they Jew, Christian, or Muslim. I think all religion has the flexibility, or scripture has the flexibility within it. I'm not going to call out bad Jews on the live stream where we're fighting anti-Semitism.
Yeah, I often point out that it's very funny. So I grew up in a very religious Muslim household, and I have often voiced and said that in that household, I learned from a very young age that Jews are evil, Jews are bad, Jews are deceptive, Jews are the enemies. We are supposed to, in the future, possibly fight them. I mean, I was in first grade when I first learned, I believe, that possibly soon in the future, we will fight the Jews and kill them, and they will hide behind rocks and trees, as a prophecy by Muhammad says. And but the funny thing is that nowadays, I criticize Islam, and I encounter Jews, and I speak to you guys, and I spoke to Rabbi Shmuley and others, and it's always you guys seem to be very, very charitable when it comes to Islam and the Quran, compared to what people would expect, or what I was told about Jews. Because I was always told, well, the Jews, they hate us, they want to kill us all, and all of that. And here you are giving so much the benefit of the doubt to Islam. Yeah, more so than I do.
I think Joseph gives more of the benefits of the doubt than I do.
Yeah, I think I can see that.
I just don't think they could handle it. You know.
yeah, I see that. I see that.
This is one of the things I respect about Christianity, is that they've managed to grow up in the last few hundred years. They've stopped persecuting people who disagree with them. And I'm not going to finish the sentence, but that's just, they've managed to grow up.
I would say it's not really possible in Islam, but that's just me.
So, one thing I would add, though, if you ask mine or Josh's ancestors 500 years ago if they ever thought that Jews and Christians would get along, or if you were to tell them that the Christians would be the Jews' closest friend in the year 2024, they would look at you like you were insane, because back then Christians were ripping our flesh from our body as we were still alive. They were the most cruel and savage of people to live under. And yet today, they stand closer to the Jewish people than any other nation stands with us. And we may have theological differences, but they're probably our closest friend when you look at like America and the evangelical Christians there. And I think we can get to the same place with Muslims. So I do a lot of work with many Muslim voices and amplify Muslim voices that aren't pushing the Daniel Haqiqatjou lines and pushing for normalization with Jews and arriving. I look at what's happening in the UAE and places like that, and I think there is hope. I do think that we're not. I mean, who knows? Maybe the Haqiqatjous will win. I hope not. But I think there's space within Islam for a more moderate and tolerant ummah that can coexist with the Jews.
You have in today's time right now, for example, since the war began on October 7th, you see that there is a major hostility and justification of evil acts, but a major hostility against Israel and Jews around the world, and that is countered by a major force that is the Western world at the moment, and especially the Christian part of the Western world. I don't know, but if the Christian world was silent or didn't do anything at all, or was completely pushed out of the picture and couldn't have any say, it would be just today Israel and Jews against everyone else. It is the Christian Western world that is kind of that is supporting Israel, that is supporting Jews, and stopping these forces from completely attacking, cracking down on, and trying to destroying Israel. And I'm happy to see that.
I agree, but I would say it's not strictly true. So if you look at 1948, the entire world turned its back, and in the lead up to 1948, the world turned its back on what became the nascent Jewish state. And 5 Arab armies invaded it, and the Jews had no support from the international community. There was a weapons embargo. We had 1 rifle for every 3 Jews, and yet miraculously, we were able, a bunch of refugees who'd just survived massacres in the Muslim world and Holocaust survivors who'd just literally 3 years after the Holocaust had arrived and survived and lived in Israel. They were able to repel 5 Arab armies with 1 rifle for every 3 soldiers. So we will stand tall. We appreciate all of the camaraderie and the solidarity that we get from the Christian world, from the West. But we took on 5 Arab armies before, and we will continue to, because we have no other choice. We will survive. Am Yisrael Chai.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
We're going to carry on with the Talmud stuff.
We're actually kind of running out of time. I didn't know that it would take this long, but I don't know if there's anything else to cover.
Unless there's any you can think of, Josh. I think most of it was just secondary sources after those ones.
I'm just having a look through the references.
He went to Rabbi Mizrahi.
Yeah, I disavow Mizrahi.
Yeah.
You do? What?
Yeah, I disavow him.
It was actually banned from the UK.
No.
But Hey, I'm sure Daniel will find a lot of common ground with some
Yeah,
of his views.
I know very few religious Jews who respect him, just personally.
Is he popular among the Mizrahi Israeli Jewish population though, or?
Oh, he is. He's very popular
Okay.
amongst, especially in Israel. He's very popular.
I think he's
because
more
he kind of-
popular with less religious Jews who are becoming religious than religious
That's also
Jews.
true. But he speaks like very harshly, and he says whatever comes to his mind that moment, I think. Like when you watch his stuff, it doesn't seem like he puts much thought into what he's saying. I'm not a fan. Disavow.
You're not a fan.
So what he then brings up, okay, he just brings lots of stuff from Shahak.
What is very funny is I was actually expecting him to bring something up during the debate. Yeah, these are just news sources. But during the debate, I expected him to bring up something that he posted on Twitter, which is he referenced one Jewish man that nobody has ever heard of, but that you guys might have heard of. I forgot his name, but he is he had his own political party, I think, and he was the only member. But he had this whole idea of saying Mecca is actually part of Jewish history, therefore we should invade and take over Mecca, or something. I forgot his name, but it's this very
sounds weird to me.
Khayba, ya Muslim, ya al Musa.
Oy.
What Joseph just did there is Muslims will often say Khaybar ya Yahud, where they will where they will say we Muslims beat you, or Muhammad's armies beat you in the Khaybar, which most
and now
Jews
we're gonna kill you again,
and we will kill you again. That's basically what they do, and that's a nice spin on that. Yeah. Well, what do you guys?
No, but we only hate the Zionists.
Yeah, only the Zionists. Only the Zionists. And then they post about Hitler and think one day everyone will understand that Hitler was right. And by the way, we only hate the Zionists.
Neturei Karta, please be our friends, please.
Neturei Karta are the true Torah Jews, not like you Talmud following Jews.
Yeah, because they believe in the 3 oaths. Can you imagine? I mean, don't you know that's not a Talmudic thing at all? No.
It's so funny.
It's so ignorant. It's hilarious.
They will take Neturei Karta and even other Jewish movements that are anti-Zionist, and they're like, look, these people, they have a heart, they are real Jews, they don't follow the evil Talmudic stuff, which is like, do you guys know anything at all? Or they will say they will go after Ashkenazi Jews, and then side with the very Ashkenazi Jewish anti-Zionists.
You're a Chaza, not like Neturei Karta.
Yeah,
you're the true Jews.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how that happened, that they were all Khazars except this tiny group that just emerged 100 years ago in Lithuania.
Yeah. And of course, Norman Finkelstein, he's not a Khazar, but everyone else is. Stop Scamming Man said, given Daniel's interest in Jewish history, this may interest, as well as the Gospel of Thomas claiming before the Quran that Jesus spoke as a baby. So did the Book of Enoch. Only in this, it was Noah. Yeah, I went into the history of how Islam takes Jesus the same way that it takes Jewish beliefs and completely distorts them without understanding what's happening. But I specifically went into the whole Jesus speaking as a baby in a video which I called "How Islam got Jesus completely wrong." Would always recommend that. Carson Death AP, thanks for having Joe and Josh on. Kol hakavod to them. I always pretend that I don't know any Hebrew, so my cover is
that
not
means like well done, basically.
Oh, good. Okay, good. Someone should ask Daniel, if non-Jews are animals, why are converts considered fully Jewish? There is disagreement on converts, right? Is there? Do you guys accept, like, if somebody converts to Judaism, for example, and learns about it and begins practicing it, do you accept them as a Jew?
There's
Yeah,
actually
absolutely.
extra commandments to love them. If anything,
Yeah.
they get better. That you love them more than the average. That just as someone who's born Jewish.
Yeah.
So to really hammer home the point, many people don't realize that the Messiah is going to descend from King David according to the Jewish tradition. He's going to be a son of David, and David's great grandmother was a Moabite. She was a convert to Judaism, called Ruth. So the Messiah in the Jewish tradition is going to descend from a convert. So it's like we have a history of conversion. We're commanded to love the convert.
Exactly. Not only is there a positive commandment to love the to love the convert, there's also a prohibition of afflicting the convert, and it's also forbidden even to remind a convert about his past.
Just to add one other thing, though, it's Judaism doesn't encourage conversion, and people confuse this for not wanting conversion. We don't encourage conversion because in the Jewish tradition, it's easy to sin as a Jew, but as Josh just taught us earlier, a Gentile that follows does righteous deeds can still get the same portion in the world to come as a Jew that does it. And so, from a Jewish perspective, it's easier to get your portion of the world to come, to go to Jannah, to go to heaven as a non-Jew than it is as a Jew. So there's no reason to convert. Judaism is not a proselytizing religion, and people confuse that for not liking converts. It's not. We want you to go to the world to come, and it's easier as a non-Jew.
I saw a funny thing yesterday, which was pointing at some of the recent popular converts to Islam, like Sneeko and Andrew Tate, and it was basically pointing out that among the three religions associated with Abraham, Islam seems to be the only one where you don't have to change your life at all in order to be accepted.
That's not strictly true, because there was a scene with Sneeko with, is it Sheikh Uthman? Is that who it is in America?
Yeah.
And he was explaining to him that he couldn't invest in property and he couldn't have a mortgage. And Sneeko was just loose, and he was calling him like, "What? I have to live as a pauper? What? I can't pimp women. I can't I can't have a mortgage."
That's funny, man. Ezra only used to say Israel. Jew community needs to wake up and expose Muhammad lies as Jews used to do in Muhammad's time gracefully to them. We have this stupidity spread all over the Quran and the Hadith. The Puma weaken with Chew. There is an interesting story history between Muhammad and the Jewish community of Medina, where it seems when you read the Hadiths that he keeps going to the Jews and treating them as like, oh yeah, we're the same, and they just make fun of him for getting things completely wrong and making things up, which is of course very, 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 very rude. Abu Roof Ram.
That is.
Ramba was living in an Islamic state that allows per Quran pimping 3-year-old girls. He has seen what Mohammedans were doing and had to address it.
Wow.
Slavic Chile said Old Testament emphasizes that God chose the Israelites not for their inherent superiority over others, but due to his promise to their ancestors and to make them a light to the nations. Deuteronomy 7:8, Isaiah 49:6. What's funny is
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Doesn't the Bible like repeatedly criticize the people harshly, and even describes them in like very harsh words, like God told you to do this, but you have turned away and you have become I don't know, is it you have become prostitutes at some point. It refers to it, things like that. And then Daniel Haqiqatjou comes here and is like, oh, Judaism says that they are all racially superior and all others are lesser. Like, totally out of touch with the narratives of the Bible.
Yeah.
You'll say if Torah law bestiality is punishable, capital punishment for all parties involved if consent within the law obviously not feasible.
I'm starting to think you are paid by the Israeli government.
Yes.
This is a lot of shekels. I'm just saying. I don't have that many shekels.
The meme is true.
Shh.
How do you have more shekels than I do? Seriously.
It just happens. That I'm also forced to wear this this thing which says "Bring them home." Bring them home now. I am forced to wear this by Mossad. They said I have to wear this, otherwise they will not pay my streams. So I have to.
Oh,
Yeah, the term Jew is misused a lot, confusing between religion and ethnicity. Should use Hebrew for the ethnicity and Jewish for the religion. The thing is, there is a difference on like when you speak to secular Jews as well. I recently spoke to Dr. Einat Wolf, who is a very, very successful scholar on Israeli history and Zionism.
Phenomenal.
And yeah,
Phenomenal.
she's fantastic. I actually talked to her before I had the debate with Daniel Haqiqatjou to exchange some ideas, and she pointed out something very interesting to me, which is that I was going to go into the debate arguing that the whole idea that Judaism causes certain things, or that Judaism is responsible for the conflict, is completely nonsensical because Israel is a secular state and so on. She said, no, that's a wrong approach. I would suggest actually acknowledging that Judaism does bear responsibility in the conflict, and that it is good that it does, because Judaism is not just strictly like Islam, a religion where you believe and you follow those things, and if you don't believe in it anymore, then you are not part of Judaism. Judaism is more complex than that. It is more a way of life where there are different interpretations, different ways to go, where you don't just stop seeing someone as a Jew, as soon as they abandon certain practices or anything like that. So Judaism would be a much bigger, much more complex collective, where even secular Jews themselves still consider themselves part of the Jewish way of living and culture. But she explained this to me in much more detail, and also recommended a passage from her book, which I want to go through. So yeah.
She's one of my heroes, but I don't agree with her religious takes. Definitions of Judaism, but she is genuinely one of the best and finest minds that we have. So I'm not going to contradict anything she said.
She is fantastic.
If I can weigh in on this one about
she's fantastic.
Like, broader question of like what is a Jew? The way I would define it is anyone who is obligated to keep Jewish law according to Jewish law. I think that's the only way you can do it without like having a circular definition, because that way you include converts and you include those who have Jewish mothers, and just by the dent of the fact that those people are, according to Jewish law, obligated in Jewish law, I think that's the most succinct definition. And then for the anti-Semites, like the Jew haters, it doesn't actually mean anything to them, because they don't believe in Jewish law anyway as a binding force in reality. So for them, maybe the Jew doesn't really exist at all.
Plus, to them, it doesn't matter if you are a religious Jew or a non-religious Jew. They will just they will put you and somebody who is of Jewish ethnic origin in Hollywood into the same category and demonize both of you as people who are trying to deceive and control the world and do all kinds of evils. So,
exactly. Yeah.
Which is rich coming from them.
Yeah.
Thus, there can be a Hebrew atheist, and in principle, following Judaism doesn't make one Hebrew. Farfor said, "You are the ones that bombed my home."
Again, really in profile picture.
Notice said, "What is Judaism's stance on strap-on pleasure?"
What the?
I'm just glad that's not shekels.
That Daniel loves so much, and if they are allowed, can you place them on the leather strap? What's funny is this is a direct reference to when Daniel Haqiqatjou had a debate with Matt Dillahunty. His whole entire opening speech was about some pleasure machine that you strap on, and then it makes you live your whole life just in pleasure. And that was his whole criticism of atheism in a secular society. It was just so bizarre that everyone was like, "What are you talking about?"
What is it with these Dawa? They're such like the Dawgandis, they're such degenerates. Muhammad Hijab, like Daniel Haqiqatjou. Yeah.
I know, it's very, very, very funny. Sard said the Rambam has the 13 principles of Jewish faith, and that is not in it. I have to go quickly. I have to pick up my kid. But let me quickly scroll through some. Cool Luke. Hamas violated the last ceasefire. That's true. Israelites, Canaanites, Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, and so on. Josh sounds like Obi-Wan Kenobi. Jews are secret Jedi. Confirmed. It's true.
Look, if any Jew was going to be Jedi, it was obviously going to be me, wasn't it?
The term anti-Semitic is terrible. It's actually specifically the history of the term anti-Semitic is a creation in order to differentiate between being against or the values
religion.
of the Jewish religion and being against the people for who they are, or their racial stuff.
The race.
And
their
I think
Jewish soul.
That's why I think the term Jew hatred should make a comeback.
Yeah, I often use the term Jew haters when I talk about it. I rarely use anti-Semitic. Hosta Maogi said, "How dare you stream without Super Genius? I refuse to give you any." Super Genius is sleeping right now. Watching Israel Advocacy. Thanks for all you do. I choose the kosher cow. That is why the two terms anti-Hebrew and anti-Jewish. Yes, thank you for your contribution. I have to go quickly. I'm Israel Chai. Oh no, I pronounced it accurately. Now everyone will know that I'm actually a secret Jew. Growing Pain said, "Have you guys seen Ben Shapiro's appearance at the Oxford Union after October 7 attacks? The reactions to him were pretty disheartening. I saw it.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
He did a phenomenal job against such idiotic people."
Yeah.
There was actually a guy who was saying, there was this girl who said that, in the Second World War, the Allies didn't kill civilians.
Didn't bomb Dresden.
Didn't bomb. Yeah, that's right.
I've heard of Holocaust denial, but Dresden denial is a new one.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, Libel. Thank you, Hunting Shark. Excellent work. Thank you, Farfor. Thank you, Farfor. And hope to see that you're healthy soon after all the bombs. Rachel, Islam are the dementors of the West. It's very rude. Thank you, Rachel. No dogma. Hypothetically, if Jews became majority population, would it then be mandatory to attack and destroy those who worship idols?
No, it's nothing to do with majority. It's to do with having a Sanhedrin. And we can't have a Sanhedrin because we don't have a temple. And we can't have a temple because we don't have the Messiah, which you don't believe is coming. So it's irrelevant.
I will show you something in a bit. The war Israel fought is literally like David versus Goliath in modern times. We as a nation outlasted vast empires, yet they all fell. Jihadis will go the same way as the Dodo and Nazi and be a pathetic footnote in history. The Nazis are really making a big comeback with the things right now, with the Islamists on Twitter right now. So
I didn't hear that one before. The Nazis are making a comeback.
Common Kerr, is it fair to describe the Talmud as an ancient Reddit board?
No.
No, it's not.
maybe if Reddit was consisting of write a bunch of weird stuff on there. I don't know, and from where you can actually derive laws. But I guess I see where they're coming from. Ezra is the son of Alan.
Oh, it was a spelling mistake in the Quran.
Yeah. Libel, yes, us Christians. I have to go. Josh, Christians are not commanded to fight the Jews. That is the big difference between Christians and Muslims. Alhamdulillah. Brian Smutti said, "Hey, IP, please read books by MIT physicists. I will note those down. We'll have a look at all of it." Hunting Shark, thank you. Same thing. Thank you again very much. I appreciate it. I just want to conclude with one thing here. Josh, have you heard of the Talmudic tunnels?
Oh, yeah, of course.
We're currently tunneling under Speaker's Corner.
I don't know if you've seen it, but Daniel actually argued that those tunnels in New York were Talmudic tunnels through which which Jews are planning on doing evil practices. And when I said, "You are completely insane, like where does this come from?" He then said, "Well, can you prove that it's not true?" So that was his reasoning.
This is the level of intellect that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
This is big brain moment.
Yeah. Jaal said, "I love the live today and the explanations of the rabbis." Thank you, rabbis, to expose the evil lies from Daniel. Long live Israel. Inshallah. Thank you. And thank you, rabbis, for joining me today for all these.
It's our pleasure, Rabbi. It's our pleasure.
I'm an Israeli atheist Jew, and I've never heard about that Mizrahi. Well. Isn't it true, by the way, just a final question, isn't it true that that even in Israel, the Mizrahi population is much more pro-Israel on average than the Ashkenazi population, among whom secularism is much bigger than among Mizrahi Jews?
Probably.
What did you? I just want to understand the question. Mizrahim, like Middle Eastern Jews in Israel, are more what?
More
Pro-Israel.
pro-Israel.
More pro-Israel.
Probably true, yeah.
I'd imagine so. Yeah. I
Yeah,
didn't put in the
because-
same statistics.
Because they've got less leftists and less well Satmars and to encounter obviously
Yeah.
those kind of sects. So by percentages for sure, and yeah.
And lots of the anti-Zionism actually comes from Ashkenazi Jewish groups.
It says Chazas. It says
So it's very funny that they always go after the Ashkenazi Jews, like they're not real Jews, when they will get the most support out of that population.
Yeah.
It is so funny. How many gargot trees have you guys planted, by the way?
How many what?
How many gargot trees have you planted?
Oh, the gargot trees.
Yeah.
I would, I really want to meet a talking tree one day. It's one of my dreams. One of the dreams I have. I just wish I could meet a talking tree.
if I had a talking tree, I would tie my flying horse to it.
Nice.
I'll give it my magic carpet.
That's good. That's good. So what I'm getting from here is that you guys are planting a bunch of gargot trees. That's basically the proof for it. Yeah. Okay. Good. Nice.
Yeah. So it's a good day to plant trees. It's Tu B'Shvat.
What is that? What is that?
Oh, it's the Jewish festival of the trees. It
Oh.
was today.
Oh. See,
One of the minor festivals.
this proves it's true.
Hamas are nervous.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining. I really have to go. Already kind of late. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks for joining in. Couldn't go through everything here, but we'll come back. And I will also be live tonight with David Wood to talk about a different neo-Nazi figure on Twitter named Jake Shields, who recently...
Oh, him.
He actually accepted to debate me, then he backed out of the debate. So I'm going to just...
I really want to debate him.
Yeah.
No, I'll debate anyone, to be honest.
Yeah. Joseph, Josh, thank you so much. Anything else you guys want to add before we leave?
No, just as a pleasure to be here. Thank you for hosting me.
Thanks for the opportunity. It's been fun. It's been real.
Yeah. Well, I just have to do it because I'm paid to do this. So yeah.
Thank you, Mossad, for sponsoring today's event.
Yeah. Today's live stream is sponsored by Mossad. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a fantastic day. And as I always say, I speak in my name, not on behalf of Joseph here, who wants to be very diplomatic and peaceful. Stay away from Islam.